We were better than Ipswich today.
And when it falls down, who you gonna call now? Come on.
Everyone, welcome to your latest Wolves Fancast episode in association with the Sports Social Podcast Network and FCQUIZ.APP. On tonight's show, I've got on me Price, Luke and Ali. Welcome to the show, guys. If you haven't heard the latest news coming out of Molineux, it gets from bad to worse. Wolves women have finally lost to West Bromwich Albion women. It's all falling apart. I mean, where do we even go from here? We're just a circus. We thought the women's team were going to carry us to have a bit of confidence every weekend because the men were so bad for so long, and even they're letting us down now. Even Danny McNamara's job is unsecure after today's defeat to the Albion in the Cup. Let's get serious. The biggest news today is that Wolves have finally relieved Gary O'Neill of his job as Wolves head coach after yesterday's 2-1 defeat at home to Ipswich. It's been a long time coming, but the scenes during the game and after the game with fans chanting for the sacking of Jeff Shi, requesting the exit of Fosun. We had an episode the other week where enough is enough, and finally, Fosun have seen that enough is enough. It may have been that Jimmy Now from Always Wolves with his crocodile tears was enough for Jeff Shi to finally lay the sword upon Gary. But I'll come to you first, Pricey. Your thoughts finally that Gary's been sacked?
I mean, yeah, like the wounded animal's finally been put out of its misery. I mean, I was out when I got the notification come through, and I must have hit like an internet black spot or something. So just something out of my pocket, and I had like the messages just like scrolling through rapid fashion, and like top of the tree, Sky Sports saying that he'd gone, and I wasn't quite sure whether to be surprised or not. I guess probably more towards no, because I mean, let's face it, if he lost either yesterday's game or Leicester's, I mean that surely that had to be enough. It's just typical, though, isn't it? Like Jeff comes out a couple of days ago saying, "Everyone be positive with your positive atoms, just be happy," and then we lose a game, and then suddenly he's gone. I mean, it's just long overdue. I mean, we saw like the win percentages that put in our group earlier. He ended up on something like 20-something%. I can't believe people inside and out of Wolves could not believe that it lasted this long to win just over a couple of games, this league game, this calendar year. I mean, it's ridiculous how long it went on for. Absolutely ridiculous. And we'll get into it more when we talk about the game itself. But I mean, when he started talking about the players in the manner that he was, I just thought that's just it there. That's just the last straw for him. So, thanks for the rare highlights, beating Albion last year and what have you. But long go great stay the welcome.
Definitely, you can't knock him. He gave us some memorable victories last season, but so many more memorable defeats in the last 9 months. Too many to stomach for me. He's got his valid excuses about not being backed by the owners. Numerous VAR decisions that have gone against us, but like I said, too many memorable defeats, and he's got his percentage slightly wrong in the comments section. But Paul Stiles, to honour Gary O'Neill's departure, the club shop will be giving 32% discount to match his win percentage with us. That's just how we've become as a club, haven't we? In the last few weeks, I've called us a circus for a good month or so now, and we've become a laughing stock. I've got West Brom fans in our Twitter mentions every half an hour laughing at us now, and even when they're getting beat 2-1 away to Watford in the Championship and they're eighth in the outside the playoffs, they've still managed to muster the energy to laugh at us, and that's how bad we've become. Because even when we're in a division above, they're still managing to find reasons to laugh at us, and that falls down to Gary O'Neill for me. He hasn't been recruited, but the way that we've played the majority of this season, and let's be real, the way that we've handled set pieces, Luke, has been atrocious. And for a guy who runs a football club that looks after many age groups, defensively, we're just a shit show.
Yeah, we're all over the place, mate. And I think it's something that I've mentioned a few times over probably the last 12 or 18 months. I don't think you can question O'Neill as a coach. I think he's a good coach. I think he puts on good training sessions. He's got good ideas, etc. But for me, it's always been the game management where he's majorly fell short. I mean, I can't think of any games off the top of my head anyway, where his decisions have actively influenced the flow or direction of a game in a positive way. I mean, if we just go off the Ipswich game yesterday, the players looked dead on their feet for the last 10 minutes, and he still only made 3 subs. You know, why are we not getting fresh legs into the game? You know, especially for the last 10 minutes, where we was just coming off a period of positivity. You know, between minutes sort of 65 and 75, we played okay, but it died off. The players was shattered. He still had 2 subs left to him, and he decided not to use them. And that's just not one excuse. Sorry, that's just one sort of example of many that we can find over the last 12 months. Well, probably over the last 18 to 24 months. And that was always my biggest concern with Gary O'Neill, that he couldn't adapt or change his game plan.
Yeah, I totally agree. Even if you wanted to sort of go out your way to find examples, even the games where you could look to say a bit of tactical system change has got us points, it's still been individual brilliance from players that's got us the moments that I look at the Tottenham home game last season, bringing on Pablo Sarabia. It's the ball from Cunha and the brilliant volley from Sarabia to make it 1-1, and then Sarabia's intricate through ball for Mario Lemina to make it 2-1. And then I think all the other memorable victories that you can put under Gary O'Neill's tenure is a lot of Pedro Neto individual brilliance. The Man City home game where he tears Aki and Foden out on the wing. The West Bromwich Albion away game, the first goal's all his work. And this is why, like you said, Luke, he's not an awful coach, because he's shown when he's got good players, he can pick up results. But over a 38-game season, he's nowhere near Premier League level. And I've said before that he's been learning on the job for far too long this season. It's finally come home to roost. Ali, your thoughts? It was good to meet you in person for the first time yesterday. I feel it's a bit unsavoury that you managed to bring one of your Everton mates along with you to watch that, but we'll leave that. Your thoughts on Gary O'Neill finally being relieved?
Yeah, much the same as the other guys. I think it's long overdue. Could have happened how many other times. Could have happened after Brentford. Could have happened after Chelsea. I think we've suffered from having someone who didn't quite have the experience. And I suppose what got me in the end, as much as anything else, on top of what the lads have said, is just the same old things happening again and again. It's set piece goal right at the death. Keep having the same mistakes. And yesterday he decided, well, you know, is the nail in the coffin his interview at the end of the game. He thought something's changed. He's turned on the players. He's gonna point at them now. And you think that was probably it, the straw that broke the camel's back, another defeat. And the minute he went in on the players, you thought that's the first time he's really done that publicly, and thought that was the end. But yeah, I don't dislike the bloke as much as I think he seems a nice guy, and he may be a good manager one day, you know, at a decent club one day. But this was too big a job for him, and the circumstances with the owners that he's got. The blame shouldn't lay wholly at his door. There's lots of other people to be blaming: owners, Jeff Shi, Matt Hobbs. It's not purely on Gary O'Neill. So to an extent, he's a victim of that. But that squad and that team should not be losing at home to Ipswich. Should not be in the position that we're in. And it just feels like, as Luke's saying, sort of not making subs, not being able to change the games. It's just we're seeing the same thing over and over again, the same mistakes over and over again. And I think they had to act. They should have acted sooner. But I think after yesterday's result, and then the reaction of the players at the end, and then his reaction after that, it was sort of, there was no other option then. I don't think there was any other way forwards. Although I was still surprised at whatever it was, 11 a.m. this morning when it actually was announced. I was still quite shocked, just because it felt like if they were going to do it, they'd have done it by now. But yeah, no, It did. To be honest, after the game, it just sort of become immune to getting beat like that. Now it didn't feel as depressing as some of the other defeats this season. That's sad in of itself, because you just the minute sort of we'd lost that momentum and Ipswich started to come on to us in the last 5 minutes, you just thought, you can see what's happening. And the minute the ball went out for a corner, I think half the ground knew something's going to happen here. And yeah, it's just a sad state to be in, that just resigned to it when it went in at the end. So yeah, just pretty glum, and I think the whole group a bit apathetic to it all at this stage, and just hoping to get a bit more enthusiasm with the new appointment whenever that happens.
Yeah, thanks for everyone who joined us live on the Wolves Fancast. Plenty of comments coming in. Make sure you can comment, so we'll try and get as many as we can up. Steve Way 89. It started off okay, but the exact complaints Bournemouth fans had about him have finally come home to roost. They did warn us. Luke mentioned it just about his substitutions, only making 3 when you could see towards the back end of that game that the players were starting to wilt with energy. For a coach who's been let down by this group of players for so long now, how you do not utilise 5 subs when it's clear that the players that you're picking week in, week out are untrustworthy to get your results, how you're still not bringing on the extra 2 subs just to bring a bit of energy to the game. For me, when we was down 1-0, it probably needed 3 subs in one hit. But like you said, guys, he's same mistakes over and over again. And then yesterday, the straw did finally break, because the way he turned on the players and dug them out for the way that they conceded the goals was huge. And it was brought up on Match of the Day by Ashley Williams that you just can't go around publicly slating your players. And the way that he dug out Nelson Semedo for the first goal, I'll bring the clip here.
Ipswich will score a goal that they'll never score against another Premier League team. They'll never score a goal like that against another Premier League team. It's impossible. Like I say, I saw Delap score goals like that in his youth team when he was a foot bigger than everyone and he was bashing people out the way. But it can't happen at this level. It can't happen. So we have some real difficulty in that area at the moment. And then the set piece stuff, we've tried everything. And I would happily take that as my fault, that set play goal, if people were stood in the right place and people were doing their jobs. But for that one, they weren't. And we get badly punished. So we will continue to try and push this group to its maximum, get them ready to fight every single time, and hopefully we can turn this around.
Steelway 89, absolute coward, never took responsibility, never his fault. His last resort was throwing the players under the bus. Literally a few days after stripping Mario Lamina as captaincy and giving Nelson Semedo the captain's armband, to dig out your captain, Luke, so soon after that change, and basically comparing him to, what's the other word? Incompetence even at under 12s level, Luke.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, obviously, you would like Semedo to win that duel, but O'Neill mentions it himself. He's watched Delap through the youth system, bullying people, bashing people about. So obviously, that's his style of play. That's what he uses. That's his strength. And he did that well against Semedo. And of course, you want to see Semedo win that duel, but at the same time, there's still a lot of defending to do after that. And it's comical. And it's just such a Wolves way to concede a goal at home to a newly promoted team who I'd be surprised if they picked up more than 8 or 10 points away from home all season. Take the lead against you. It's just comedy, pure comedy, but it's not funny because it's Wolves. And Gary O'Neill, mate, you've not just you, but you've set us back 5 years now, maybe even 10. It's got to take a lot to recover from this.
Yeah. Price, your thoughts on Gary and his comments on Semedo?
I mean, I'm not being funny, right? But if I was one of the players in that dressing room and he's saying those things, right? And obviously, like a lot has gone on in the dressing room because it was so late coming in, wasn't it? The post-match practices. I'd be saying, like, who the fuck are you with these sort of comments? To be saying, like, all that things, I know it's nothing to do with me. I've tried my best with this lot. I can't do anything more for them. They're just shit, basically, is what they're saying. I've done all I can with them. And he's talking about set piece stuff there as well. And he's got that notorious shit set piece coaching that we had to fire 3 months later, and we've got worse since that point. So I'm not
we
going to
conceded
take
18 goals from set pieces so far this season. I'm sure I heard that on TalkSport yesterday.
it's
18 goals, and we've not even met Santa yet, and we've conceded 18 goals from set pieces. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty certain that was the stat I heard on TalkSport. It's pathetic.
14 and 18 is more than that's a gap. But I mean, and also the point being, all those comments about the set pieces are fine, but digging out Semedo, like we just said, he's freshly made him captain. I'm not being funny, but it's not. He's talking like he's made the biggest mistake in the world, Semedo.
Yeah.
And like Luke just said, he hasn't. He's just up against someone who I don't care if his name is Liam Delap or he's got a fancy foreign name or whatever. He's just a player with more strength than Semedo. That's all it is. He's just been out muscle by him. That can happen. Doesn't matter if you're a world class player or whatever. If you just come up against someone who's stronger than you, you're going to struggle to win a strength battle with them, aren't you? There's plenty of stuff that happened after that where we could have prevented that goal. So it wasn't just Semedo being out muscled that meant that we let in that goal, and it wasn't absolute Keystone Cops calamity as well. Like how it went in, like I say, it's just typical Wolves, that is. And like you mentioned, Ashley Williams on Match Today, he was bang on. Once he starts stepping back and like absolving himself or trying to absolve himself of any blame, and start saying, "No, look, I've done all I can with this lot, and I'll keep trying, but they just don't do what I want them to do." But, make them really boiling them down and belittling them is what he's doing essentially. I mean, I'm not surprised if he did get another game after that, O'Neill, they really wouldn't have played for him against Leicester. They would not have turned up. Leicester would have just easily sorted us aside because they wouldn't have played for him after that. And I get it, as I've always said, that it's not just him, but Bosa and Jeff have got all their blame to take as well. So it isn't, like Ali said, it's not just Gary O'Neill is just the root cause of all the problems. Now he's gone, everything's going to magically turn around. And we hope that's the case, but it's not going to be as simple as that. But he didn't do himself many favours in many aspects, O'Neill. And yeah, digging out your captain, he's not been in the job barely a week. I mean, what does anyone expect that to do? Team morale.
Yeah, devastating to go behind to the promoted side. We've all said a couple of things in the build up to this game and on today's episode that we shouldn't be losing to a promoted side, but you can't. No one's entitled to 3 points in a Premier League game, and the way that we've shipped out 3 points to every team, bar Southampton and Fulham this season, has been laughable. Did you take any positives at all from that first half, Ali? Because it just seemed to get worse. And well, I'm a brilliant footballer. Wanted to blow off Arsenal. Well, how Jean-Ric Bellegarde missed that chance in front of the North Bank yesterday, Ali. This is sort of excuses that Gary O'Neill has got in his back pocket, that he's given players who have let him down, players who have not been adequate replacements for the players that we've lost. But was there any sort of positives you took from that first half that we could get back into this game?
Well, I think actually, like other games, the first 8 or 9 minutes or something, we started quite brightly and thought, actually, okay, we've started okay, had a bit of the ball. In fact, I think Bellegarde won a couple of free kicks, and you thought, okay, hasn't started too badly. Then their goal goes in, just a horrendous goal to concede. And as you say, we get the chance to equalise quite soon after with Bellegarde. And I was sat in the North Bank, and you just sort of, as the ball came to him, I had no confidence that was going in. And the minute he missed that chance, he just fell apart. That was the end of his game. You might as well have brought him off at that point, because that was it. He completely lost his confidence after that. I mean, for the rest of the half, I've not seen Andre have as bad a half as that. I mean, obviously he got hooked at half time. He had a really poor half. We had a half chance, didn't we, with Strand Larsen on his left foot, but it was a bit of a weak effort. I can't think of any particular positives that came out of it other than it was only 1-0. I didn't think Ipswich actually offered very much, although I'm not expecting them to. I'm expecting us to be all over them and not give them a goal. But no, I mean, I didn't think it was necessarily our worst half of football, but that's a pretty low bar. but it just, you could just sense from the atmosphere that it was, the crowd was quiet. It wasn't sort of as toxic as I thought it might be. There were the odd chant against Foster and against Jeff, but it wasn't as visceral as I thought it might be. And I suppose by the time it got to sort of half time, you had the sort of, it was almost became a bit of a joke, a bit like some of the away games with Doherty taking 20 minutes to throw the ball in and everyone sort of winding up. And it just thought, this is just the epitome of where we're at the moment, that we can't. Matt Doherty's got the ball and he's got no one to give the ball to. So he ends up just launching it down the line. And it's just like, we've completely lost it. This is done. We shouldn't be in this position. This is.
There was also that one instance, wasn't there? I mean, Matt Doherty did a foul throw. Yeah. I mean, it's one of my biggest pet peeves in football. Yeah. A professional footballer, never mind like Premier League level, I'd find them a week's wages if they did a foul throw. But like you said, the way that the fans was jeering him to take a throw in because there was literally no movement. You mentioned Andre there; he literally couldn't find a pass if he had the whole pitch free of opposition yesterday. It was just unfathomable how we made such hard work against a promoted side. But when you've got a coach who's clearly got no faith in a starting 11, because I'd be surprised at how many consecutive starting 11s he's made this season. But then going with 5 defenders at home to Ipswich when they'd only won 1 away game all season, it was just, like you said, he's got all of his excuses. And I'm like Steve was saying in the comment section, all the opposition fans that you've seen on social media today are giving Gary an out that we've made £200 million worth of sales since before. So I think since Lopetegui left. So, but you can't set up this particular team with this group of players to be so negative, and 9 times out of 10 they want to play the safe pass, which is backwards, and then sometimes even worse, doing through balls to their opposition strikers, trying to pass it back to our goalkeeper. It's unfavorable. Somehow in the second half, with the slight deflection, Mateus Cunha makes it 1-1, and from that moment, Luke, there only seemed to be one winner because there was the momentum that we had. They had a bit of belief, the players. I think the chance that Strand Larsen had from good work from Guedes for the cross, which ended up going just wide with the left foot. It only seemed to be one winner that was coming that way. But classic Wolves, we fell apart not long before full time. But you've already mentioned the subs. Where else did it go wrong for you in that second half?
I think a couple of people have mentioned in the comments about the players having to take some responsibility as well. So one thing that stood out to me was when we was breaking, Ait-Nouri did a really sort of tired, lazy pass. And I'm not sure if Ipswich might have broke from that and actually won the corner from it. But like Cunha was absolutely killing him. And I get, if people are making mistakes on the pitch, yeah, you can have that conversation, but just the way he went about it, and somebody else has mentioned the body language of the players, it just wasn't there yesterday. So I think, when you add that into the tiredness, the shape had pretty much gone as well. Last 10 minutes, the amount of holes that they could find in our defence, we was all over the shop. It's just like it went really undisciplined. And for me, that starts with the coaching staff. So then you look at the scenes at full time as well. You look at the scenes at full time against West Ham last week. You look at the scenes when Jose Sarr's jumping in the South Bank, having it off with fans because they're questioning his performances. The zero discipline throughout that team. The discipline has completely gone. And when you couple into that the fact that you've got a manager who can't make changes during a game to sort of adapt to the opposition or to adapt to the scenarios that the game's bringing out, then you add into that Folsom, which would be a whole nother episode on its own, and their shortcomings and the state that they're running the club into. It's just a recipe for disaster. An absolute recipe for disaster. But it's gone now. We've all got our wish, and I suppose we've just got to try and look forward and be as create as many positive atoms as possible to get out this fucking shit.
Yeah, it's all about the positive atoms from now on. It's like Ali mentioned, just it wasn't as toxic as I expected yesterday, and nowhere near. There was chance of Jeff Shi being a wanker, forcing out those sorts of things, but nowhere near the vitriol that I was expecting. Look at the last time Ipswich beat us at Molineux. I think it was 3-0. Pretty much got Solbakken in the sack. We had a coach install a Solbakken who had paint thrown over his car, and I'm still seeing Wolves fans defend Gary O'Neill. It's balmy how far we've come as a fan base, because we used to be pretty hardcore. You've seen us in previous years carry us over the line to win big games with how important, not just the South Bank, how big the whole crowd is at times, but the way that Jeff Shi has priced out a certain core of the Wolves supporters, you can see it now that it's just not there, that sort of venom that's needed to make a change as soon as that he should have done.
But even away from like the toxic Wolves and wanting to sort of kick everyone's head in, just that relationship as a whole between club and fans is just completely gone. When Jacket came in League One, the way he repaired that relationship between the club and the fans was absolutely fantastic. And he probably doesn't get as much credit as he deserves for that. And then it happened once again when Nuno came in, and that relationship, because obviously we was going into the Premier League, you could say he did a better job of that than Kenny Jackett, and Jackett's job was absolutely fantastic. And for me, that's exactly what we need to do with the next appointment. That relationship between probably not club and fans, because I think that's another topic, but between team and fans, that for me needs to be a priority on what we sort of start making ways to fix the mess that we're in. Because it makes a massive difference. You're spot on. It makes a massive difference. You look at atmospheres at Molineux over the years, and the one that I always go to was Man City at home when VAR tried to bum us by giving them as many penalties as possible and as many opportunities to take penalties as possible. The atmosphere that day is, credit to Nuno and credit to the players, but for me, the atmosphere is what got us that win against Man City that day, which is absolutely phenomenal. And it's some place to play at the Molineux when the fans are supporting the team like that.
I genuinely got emotional at the end of that game, such as how powerful it was. And I think they got off lightly. Like you said, then they got off lightly yesterday. But Jeff, Bosun, there was a little pocket of it for like 5 minutes, I think, during the second half, wasn't it? And then towards the end of the game. But when you consider like the decline of Wolves in recent years, they've got off lightly. But really, have got off lightly.
Do you not remember Burnley at home when we was on the pitch? Well, of course you remember it because it's been all over Twitter the last couple of weeks. But, that's Wolves, Ali's. That's proper Wolves. But it's gone. And I know it's a different world now, and people are a lot more soft and sensitive. But I still think you need a slight element of that about you, so people understand. Like, you can't come here and take the piss. The people would literally shed tears on YouTube for this club. So you need to take it seriously.
Crocodile tears.
Don't forget, some people have genuinely, like this season especially, some people have genuinely probably given the price rises, they've altered their life in some way to make sure they can afford a season ticket this season, right? Be it big or small or whatever. And we've all had these discussions before about, the decisions you have to make in your personal life, because you can't give up the Wolves. You don't want to, or you just can't give up the Wolves, right? So some people have had some big decisions to make this summer, and they've made them. And this is what, has been presented back so far, this plate of utter steaming shit that has been our season so far, right? And you think, And for what, Jeff and his benchmarking, and look what's happening. We've seen like record numbers of goals being conceded at an alarming rate. We've got one home league win all season, which people can shout about, and even that wasn't unconvincing. Sorry, even that wasn't convincing. So, like I say, I think they're getting off lightly, to be honest, given all the managed decline that we've been in with this club. We know their philosophy now. It's just no more money. You've got to try and keep yourself going, sell off the big players. We just don't do it well. Like I said last week on the pod, that someone like Brighton do that well, or manage to keep the team progressing despite selling big players, and we obviously haven't. Like this summer, sell our best defender, don't replace him, and then look what's happening. Record numbers of goals conceded from corners as well. It's just gone south at like a record rate, and I think this is what's like generally upsetting in a way. Like Luke was talking about the Nuno days. That still lives in quite recent memory, and for a lot of people, that we were progressing. We was all having these dreams. We just had that little taste of having like Euro away days, Euro campaigns, and we thought, well, we can see progression here. We can actually see us challenging, and then in 3 to 4 years, we've already had one scare, didn't we? When we had to get Lopetegui in, and he had to come save the day, a load of investment come in January to stop the investment going down into the Championship, and then look, 2 years on, we're here again now. We're in exactly pretty much the same position now, having to get in the manager just before the January window. I'm sure there'll be some funds coming in January to protect the investment, try and keep us up. But where we were just like a few years ago to where we are now, it's just sad how it's gone. Really, it's just sad how it's just been such a promising project that now just been flushed down the toilet.
That's it. The constant lying, the moving of goalposts. We all know that the pandemic clearly affected the ownership, and maybe from direction from their government to invest less into overseas sports team, which was obviously a prime objective when they first took us over. We're so fractured now as a fan base from not only the club, but we've got a lot of disdain for this group of players now. I found even like yesterday when we managed to put it back to 1-1, I still dislike a number of the players, the way that they've carried themselves recently. I've said it myself, and I've heard other people say it, that maybe Wolves getting relegated might be the reset that the club needs. But I think until Fosun sell us up now, we're on a decline. You mentioned it just there, Pricey. Lopetegui came in previously and was given a boatload of money to keep us up, and thankfully kept us up. It looks like we're going to go down a similar route now. Maybe not as high profile manager as Lopetegui, but it's just going to be the same cycle year on in under this ownership now. And until they sell us, I think we're just constantly going to go in the same cycle. And it's unfortunate. Like I said on the previous show, I didn't know that there's a gold mine at Wolves if it's run properly. And it looked like it was going that way under that Nuno era. And then they managed to recruit badly. Obviously, losing Jimenez to that injury was devastating for the playing side of the club, and we've never really recovered. Losing Nuno as well. Luke, I was calling you like brats. We all said it at the time that we'd become a bit disillusioned with Nuno and the way that we were playing. It was still in the top half when he left the club. No, sorry, when Jimenez got injured, we finished 13th under Nuno. I think it was in the end. So, they always say, be careful what you wish for, but no one envisaged us to fall off the Premier League planet as quickly as we have done. And the common denominator there is Jeff.
Yeah, 100%. We had the conversation about it yesterday, didn't we? About our thoughts on Nuno and his sacking and, the way we felt at the time. But the common denominator is Jeff Shi. I'm sorry, it just pains me because he's so poor at his job. He's really not fit for purpose. He's really not. I've said it years ago. I've got no doubt Jeff Shi is a fantastic businessman. Football is a business now, but it's a different type of business, and I just don't think he gets it. In fact, I think he's a million miles away from it. A big loss was Laurie Dalrymple. Massive loss for the club that was. Then obviously, Scott Sellers comes in and Jesus Christ. And you got Matt Hobbs at the moment, and there's still a hell of a lot of question marks around his role at the club, and is he doing his job to as good as he should. But we're just in a lot of trouble now. I'd like to think that as a Premier League football club, you can run the self-sustained model. There's a hell of a lot of money in the game. Yes, I know there's a hell of a lot of money that goes out of it as well. So I've got no issue with Folsom saying that we're going to be a self-sustaining football club. I actually think it makes sense, because you don't want to be 5 and 10 years down the line and you look at Man United's financial numbers at the moment. I think I heard on Sky Sports News about they've lost 315 million or something over the last X amount of years. You don't want to be in that position. You want to be able to run it at a profit if you can. And I think with the position that Wolves are in the league, we can do that. The fact that we seem to be struggling to run at profits when we're getting so much in player sales is really, really concerning. And then on the flip side as well, even if we were to run at losses of, let's just say for argument's sake, £40 million a year, or even if we ran at profits of £40 million a year, for the bigger picture of Folsom and what they do, it's literally a drop in the ocean. So I don't understand why they're putting so many sort of constraints and restrictions on this club. It honestly blows my mind, and I'm really, really concerned about the long-term future of this club with Folsom and probably more particularly Jeff Shi in the position that he's in.
Yeah, they've clearly come to a point as owners that the investment has run dry. I've already mentioned that the pandemic would have affected them financially. You still look at the chairman Grohl being the 7th richest owner in the Premier League table when you put the numbers down, but they've clearly come to the end of their pipeline with this club, and apparently it's open secret that we're for sale, but they need to keep us in the Premier League this season, or what's probably worth a £300-400 million club is probably going to be worth a quarter of that if we're in the Championship, if best.
I mean, Matt Bradley's made a good comment about the self-sustainable, saying that it works if you have a pipeline from your academy with the players that get to play. Now, that's another concern, because our academy is arguably in the top 10 in the country. We're a Cat 1 academy. So then you start looking at, well, why are we still struggling with that self-sustained model? Because we've been a Cat 1 academy for a long time now as well. We're not just talking 2 or 3 years. We're probably talking closer to 7, 8, 9, 10. So when you add it all in together, that's like when I mentioned earlier, it's a recipe for disaster, because whilst there's some absolutely brilliant players within Wolves Academy across all age levels, we've got some really talented players there. And I know coming through the academy into the Premier League, very, very difficult, and clubs do struggle. But should we be seeing better returns from our academy?
We mentioned that in the previous show. You're looking at sort of Morgan Gibbs-White, so probably the last academy player that's reached decent level in our first team. And for a club that was quite good at bringing players through in sort of the 90s, you talked about, Robbie Keane, Jolene Lescott, Matt Murray, players who would have reached the top level, who did reach the top level. That pipeline has run dry, and you see in recent times players like, I think it's Alvin Ayman, who went to Liverpool. There's various other academy players who have left our club for measly fees to go to these bigger clubs, but we just aren't accelerating or bringing through the type of player that we need to impact financially to keep us ticking over as a club. And it's frustrating because you know yourself, Luke, there's some cracking kids out there, but Wolves as a club just don't seem to be picking them up. And we've discussed young Ethan Smith a few times. He's bound to be one that gets penny pinched by another club sooner rather than later.
Yeah, which again, like we said, we've got some really good players, and like you got Leo Sahara as well, another one who went to Newcastle. And it's a concern that even at academy level, we're starting to get bullied by these bigger clubs. But even with these bigger clubs coming in for our academy players, you'd still like to think that we can produce more than one or two every 3 or 4 years that go on to sort of play in your Championship League One levels, and you can earn a bit of coin from, even if it's 750 grand here, 1.5 mil there. I mean, I'm sure we're probably doing it more discredit than what it actually deserves. But again, just looking at the whole picture, it's concerning, man. Really is.
I think we're the only Chinese-owned club left in Europe prior today. Like I said, all the others have backed out from their respective clubs, and they've sold up. As you said, Dan, from that government direction, wasn't it, to just get out of football? They had that sweet spot for a few years where they were piling the money in, changed their mind. I think if what I heard on the radio was right today, then we're the only Chinese-owned club left in Europe. So, and we can see the direction that they're not going with us, and it's not a forward direction either.
Yeah, it's frustrating because, like I said, we could have been run to a seriously high level if they would have carried on with their 10-year plan, but it's been completely ripped up, hasn't it? And yeah, let's begrudgingly get back to yesterday's defeat. Obviously, I met Ali for the first time in person. Everyone knows I'm smaller than a flipping candle. Ali's opposite to me. Ali, talk to me about the set-piece defending for that goal, because it's all on Gary O'Neill. Gary O'Neill can blame certain players not being in the same position, but the zonal marking yet again, not having a player on either post, it was just beyond laughable. And like you said, as soon as they got that corner, there was a moment before they got that corner, the guy in front of me said with a few expletives, "We've settled for a draw here," and I was like, "We ain't even got a draw here." And then as soon as they got the corner, like you said earlier, the inevitable.
Yeah, I think my comment was, he's done if we can see from there. And then the minute the ball was coming in, you could see, I forget the lad's name for Ipswich, you could see he was free. You could see nobody was near him. And you just saw it. It was like, well, here we go again. It was almost like slow motion in the North Bank. You could just, he had so much time just to nod it in the corner. I mean, I'm not sure who was meant to be there, who was meant to be blocking the run. Obviously, Nori sort of made a half-arse jump for it. As Luke was saying before, I mean, Nori had gone down with cramp in the 81st minute, and it was sort of what's going on here? Like, he's knackered, so where's the changes? What's he doing? So there's no wonder we're not set up right, or he can't challenge for that ball. The guy's got the run on him. I think Totti was in sort of that vicinity as well, whether that's part of his zone. I mean, we don't know from O'Neill who was meant to be stood where for that. Whether we should have been conceding a corner in the first place. It wasn't a particularly threatening cross, but Totti put out for the corner. Whether Johnston should have come to just get it and just clear it out and just get something on it, take the pressure off, knowing what our defence is like at that point in the game. I don't know. I mean, probably seen from the clips as well, whether there's possibly a shout of offside. At the time, I could see O'Neill sort of running over to the monitor as if something had gone on.
And he just levelled up on Candy Crush.
I don't know. He was.
I think he was running over to VAR to say, "Please don't disallow this. I need to be sacked for Christmas. I don't want to be having to set up this group of players on Christmas Day for Man United on Boxing Day."
Has he been paid 3.6 mil as well?
I'm not sure. There was an article earlier that said apparently the compensation that he was due to get wasn't much dissimilar to what he had previously. Obviously, he signed, was it a 3 or 4 year contract in the summer, 3 with an option for a 4th or something like that. Just laughable. But just have a look at that goal one more time, because the amount of time that he's got to run, he hasn't even made the run. The ball is literally landed on literally probably 7 yards out, central of goal. Every single player is zonal marking, thin air. It's Luke, I've played for some shit league teams, and Even I wouldn't have defended that bad.
Mate, so I'm watching an under-15s team at the moment, and we were struggling defensively at the start of the season. And it's just the basics. So the one message that I get across to my team is, on every set piece that's been put into the box, make first contact. Just make first contact. And you reduce the sort of percentage of conceding from that set piece probably by about 70%. It's, the 16 set piece goals conceded this season. It's laughable. It really is. It's just embarrassing at this point. Like, we're not even seen Christmas, and we've already conceded that. You shouldn't even be conceding 16 goals from set pieces over the course of a season, really.
Everyone's just running away from him. Like that zonal marking. Everyone, like you said, he doesn't have to move. He doesn't move anywhere. Everyone is just running away from him. Those 6 players there that are just. And I watched it on the match of the day. They had multiple angles, and you could see him. That was it Taylor who scored it for Ipswich? I can't remember who it was, but he just stays in exactly the same spot, and all of our 6 players just run past him, just leave him. So he's just going, "Oh, fine." Literally no one's on me whatsoever. And like you said, you could just see it clear as day. As soon as that corner come in, I just how I look at it as well from my angle. I just saw it, and I just, like I said to my bloke, and the ball's in the air. I said to the bloke, "It's right." I said, "Goals."
I think I said free header. I said free header the minute they saw the ball in the air, because you could see that he was free. I thought we've had enough time to see that without anybody. I mean, Bueno there's just jumping into thin air. I don't know what Nori's doing. It was so obvious what was happening, and we had our own fair share of corners. Never once looked like scoring. They've had. Yeah. One corner right at the end, and it's a free header. And we're averaging 1 goal a game from a set piece. I mean, that is ridiculous. That's 38 in a season. And I seem to recall last season, didn't we have at the start of the season, we went quite a good chunk without conceding 1. I'm sure at the start of last season, we actually started quite well from defending set pieces. And then obviously, and I think he'd said, "Oh, that's what we're going to go back to now." And it's just, I'm not entirely sure what, obviously clearly it's zonal marking with some blockers in the way, and he's commented that we're struggling with physicality. I think back to our teams before, they weren't, even on the Nuno days when we were a massive team, but they clearly knew what they were doing, and people were taking ownership and doing their job. It's just, for a goal like that to go in, I think that's where you lose that connection with the players, because you think, well, that is just laughably bad. That is Sunday League stuff, and it's so obvious when you're watching it. And there's so nobody just willing to go and just make that first contact, go win that ball, just head it away, just get out there and wherever it's going, go and head it away. Just clear it.
With 5 seconds to go as well, just get that first contact, deal with it, clear it, let the ref blow his whistle, go down the tunnel, take the point, see you later.
That was my point after the game, that I wasn't trying to paper over the cracks of how bad things were, but we can't even buy or steal a point at the moment, because Ali's mentioned, you can just see it on the screen. There's clearly a player in front of Sam Johnson. How, for me, I can't see how he's not interfering. But the amount of times that we've been done on a set piece, predominantly at the back post. I'm sorry to keep bringing the clip up, but look at the cluster at the front post, and you've got literally 8 Nori marking their biggest centre half. It's laughable, and Gary O'Neill can blame players for not being in the right positions, but he's the one that has been setting these up to be zonal marking all season, and we're averaging 1 goal a game. We've been conceding from a set piece. It's honestly, after Jeff Shi backed Gary O'Neill early on in the week, he himself should have been handing in his resignation today, because he's so far away from being able to run a football club just basically, because he's running it that bad. I mean, Luke, just give up your club, mate. We'll bring you in for the rest of the season, because I don't want Jeff in this role anymore. He's outstayed his welcome. He's fractured the club, and like I said, I don't even think a relegation will be the reset button that we need. I think False and selling up is what we need. The only problem is then, what type of caliber of owner are they going to sell to? Because if the right money comes in, they're going to sell it to whoever. And as we've seen in previous years, you can get brought by the wrong type of owner, and you can really be sunk. Then it's really concerning where we're running as a club at the moment, and the way that Ryan Ait-Nouri had his head lost at the end of the game, having to be manhandled off the pitch by Craig Dawson, was just another case of we're surely going down. There's too many things that have come across as embarrassing this season. 3 penalties at home to Bournemouth, Craig Dawson scoring 2 own goals at Everton, Mario Lemina fighting with Sean Derry, Mario Lemina crying after the Newcastle game. It's honestly, the list goes on and on and on, doesn't it? And hopefully, now that we've finally pushed the exit button on Gary O'Neill, we can start moving in a different direction. And we'll be back just after this quick audio break to talk about the possible new incoming. Welcome back to the Wolves Fancast match review show after yesterday's 2-1 defeat at home to Ipswich and the exit of Gary O'Neill. David Ornstein dropped one of his Ornstein bombs earlier on today that Wolves are likely to appoint Vitor Pereira, current head coach of Shabab in Saudi Arabia. No issues with the move happening. Wolves have supposedly agreed a €1 million release clause for the coach. Personal terms will be no issue. Comes with a hefty listed of former clubs that he's coached, but also quite a number of titles and high place finishes with those teams that he's coached. In particular, like sort of clubs like Porto, where he won back-to-back titles in 2012, and recent times managing big clubs like Fenerbahce. It does seem that Wolves have gone with hat in hand to Jorge Mendes to make this deal possible. Graham Bailey of TBR Football stated that apparently this is the 4th time that Vitor Pereira has been in line for the job, going back to 2016 originally, then 2017, and most recently in 2022. An article described the head coach as Portuguese with backroom staff of vastly experienced, having operated in multiple countries and secured league titles at Porto, Olympiacos and Shanghai. Pereira has built a strong reputation for his ability to handle big names and improve players whilst he speaks multiple languages, including very strong English. If his points to game ratio is achieved in his most managerial career at Wolves, it should be sufficient to regain top flight status. Among the other factors thought to have led Pereira to being targeted are the discipline and emotional understanding he has said to apply to his work, both of which are particularly important in light of Wolves' recent troubles. Vitor Pereira, guys. Ale, your thoughts on the coach? What do you know about him? Your thoughts?
I'd be lying if I said I'd watched much of Porto in 2011, 2012, or Olympiacos or Shanghai more recently, or Shabab. When I looked him up, when I saw the name, it rang a bell with obviously Everton went after him a few years ago, and I think the fans were rioting or because they didn't want him after Rafa. But then, doing a bit more research today, people speak pretty highly of him. It sounds as though he's sort of been earmarked for a Premier League job for quite a while now. That he's been on the cusp for a couple of. Obviously, he's tried to get our job a couple of times. He's been on the cusp of getting Everton's job at least once, maybe twice. So, without meaning to sound like Mick McCarthy, I don't know if it can get any worse. Probably can. But no, if he can set us up more consistently and deal with the emotional intelligence of the team and try and get, he's got a decent start against Leicester next week, who are, assuming he's in place for then, who've just been hammered away at Newcastle. From everything that everybody has said, he's got a good pedigree. He's got 600 odd games experience managing, which is a lot. And so he's got that more experience that O'Neill didn't have. And obviously we've pushed the Mendes button. So we know how this works. In January, there'll be some money spent to try and preserve the product, keep us in the league. And hopefully that's enough. And we're not completely cut adrift at the moment. It's probably, we have got time to resurrect it. He's going to have to get on with it. But it wasn't as if we sort of I mean, of all the names that were being mentioned linked with the job, I know there was a sort of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was there yesterday, and it was like, hang on, is this what this is? I got quickly kiboshed, thankfully. But no, I think of all the candidates who were out there, there wasn't a standout one, or certainly there wasn't a standout candidate who actually wanted the job. So it sounds like we've gone back to the tried and tested, go to Mendes and get who we can get his best client who wants a Premier League job. So yeah, I can't say I know loads about him other than what I've read up today. But hopefully, even with his level of experience, that it's better than what we've had. And I just don't believe this squad or this team should be where it is. It is better than that.
Should we bide our time and wait for Pep to get sacked, Luke?
Nah, he's a fraud, mate. He's a fraud. Without his millions and billions to spend, which he definitely ain't going to get here, he's fucked. But I mean, just it's a big ask, ain't it, for any manager to come in and salvage something. Well,
that's what we need to implore Wolves fans not to write this manager off before he's even appointed, because it's going to be a tough ask for anyone who comes in. I'm not sure who they genuinely thought was a possible appointment, unless they actually believed Jose Mourinho was going to leave Fenerbahce for us. And then you look at the names who were linked: Steve Cooper. I mean, even John Eustace was a name that was chucked out into the social media pan earlier. And I mean, I'm quite optimistic with Vitor Pereira. He comes with a background of being good with discipline. He's won things wherever he's gone, and obviously the Portuguese element always helps with the amount of Portuguese and Brazilian Portuguese-speaking players that we've got. Apparently he's good at setting up the teams defensively, and like Ali mentioned, he was lined up for the Everton job recently, but the Everton fans pretty much kiboshed that. But he has been earmarked for the Premier League for a few years now, and the reason why he has been through a number of clubs, from his own words, is that he's been building up a financial fund for himself, so he could be comfortable in picking up a job that he wants when he wants it. So he hasn't. Yeah, I mean, it's not great when you put it down on paper in that fashion, but if he's got himself into a comfortable position that he's able to apply for jobs that he wants to take over instead of being like a firefighter, like certain managers that we would have been linked to, all I can say is just give the guy a chance, because it was either stick with Gary and just keep plummeting, or taking a chance on a guy like Vitor Pereira. What was your thoughts on Vitor Pereira, Price?
I think, as is the way with modern day fans and social media, a lot of fans have probably like nailed their colours to the mast already. Like it's like one extreme or the other, isn't it? When it comes to this, so someone like looked at like his previous press conferences on YouTube, it's somehow, and looked at him and gone, I like him. He's a firebrand. He's going to be brilliant at Wolves. Can't wait for him to get stuck into the squad. And then other people have gone like the opposite way and said this is like our Pepe Mel appointment, or Remy Gard appointment. You know, that Albion had and Villa had, or that Whittling chap that Swansea had. You know, all three of those all got relegated. So, you know, it's one extreme or the other. You know, what you see from the immediate fan base, which is surprising. But I think, given the job at hand here, the guy he ticks a lot of boxes. You know, I think he's disciplinarian, speaks good English, he's experienced, he's won stuff, so he can speak from a point of being proven. Whereas Gary was trying to get across his ideas as a novice. This guy's coming in to say, look, you know, yes, I'm a managerial journeyman. I've managed all over the world, but I've won stuff, and I'm speaking from a point of experience. I agree with the point. You know, we've obviously pressed the Mendes button with this one, and that's not to say that's necessarily a bad thing. I mean, that has worked in the past when we've gone down that route until it didn't, until it stopped working. But I think it's an interesting appointment if it all goes through, compared to the names that you reeled off earlier, like the Eustaces of the world and everything. That was never going to that was never going to fly, was it? I mean, can you imagine if you sat Gary O'Neill to bring in John Eustace? You know, that would just have said it. That would have just been an acceptance, wouldn't it? That yeah, we're going down, and we're going with a bloke who's showed a bit of progress in the Championship. So I think it's like I say, I think it's an interesting appointment. It needs to be a disciplinarian in one respect because of I wouldn't know what we've seen with Nuri being carried off the pitch like a child and Cunha grabbing people's glasses and running off with them.
We ain't talking about the Cunha thing. I told you this off show. If we don't talk about it, then the FA might not ban him because that's the last thing that we need now is Cunha getting banned for like 4 or 5 games because he's ripped a flipping fat ginger bloke's glasses off.
Okay, so that's okay. I'll put those please.
Dan, you've just made it even worse because you've the victim is now a fat ginger bloke, so he's got all them angles that he's going to get it by.
You're going to get a discipline.
You're going to hit a ginger bloke, go in at Ed Sheeran in the flipping director's box, Cunha, make it worth your while. Just read another comment, Josh, which I thought was pretty on the money, to be fair. Not many of us knew who Nuno was at first. He may be just what we need, experience, solid defensively. Like I said, you can't write a manager up before he's even appointed. And I'm taking the positives at the moment. You look at that league table, an half-decent new manager bounce might be enough to get us out of the relegation zone. We're only 5 points off Leicester in 17th. We've got Leicester on Sunday. There's still 22 games to play, guys. It's looking tough. We've got a mountain to climb, but all it takes is a couple of wins to get this team back on side, get a bit of belief, a manager who the fans believe in, and then all the things about Jeff Shi being a little fucking moonhead will quickly get forgotten. And before you know it, we're in the quarterfinal of the FA Cup under Vitor Pereira, and who knows where we're going from there. Any other thoughts based on where we are as a club at the moment, Ali?
I mean, I think that in terms of Vitor Pereira, you have to appreciate the circumstances he's operating in. I think he'll be dealt a different hand than O'Neill because I think they will spend some money. They'll spend some money in January to get him out of this. But yeah, the whole model. To be honest, when I read sort of all the, you can see why managers aren't interested. It's because this self-sustainable model doesn't work. I less have an issue with the self-sustainable bit. Like Luke said, I think that makes sense. It's more that isn't really what they've been doing because self-sustainable suggests you're going to spend what you bring in and you're going to replace what you sell, which is what Brighton have done, Brentford, all these teams. That 2 or 3 years ago, we were miles ahead of them. And even Villa, we were so far ahead. And they've just completely, they've just ruined it. They've given up all that advantage. And every club is a selling club. All the big clubs have to sell their best players. It happens time and again that even teams that are much bigger than us will have to sell their better players because even bigger clubs will come in and poach them. And so I don't have an issue with that in terms of saying, look, we're going to be self-sufficient. We want to sell a Neto for 60 million or a Kilman for 40 and have 100 million to spend. That's fine. But spend the 100 million and spend it wisely and replace what you lose. Don't sell a Kilman and then leave us with effectively last season's backup defence. Don't do that. That's obviously not going to lead to progression. And similarly with Neto, I mean, if you are going to bring someone in, bringing in Forbes and Gomez, who have got as far as I saw at the time, I thought they would be starters. I didn't think they were being bought to be backups. So I don't exactly know what they were bought to be. But I haven't got an issue with Fossen saying we're going to be self-sustainable. I do have an issue with that clearly isn't the truth. That isn't what it is. And I also have an issue with the same thing happened to Lars, to Lopetegui, to O'Neill. Yeah, we'll definitely bring in a centre-back. We'll definitely bring in a striker. Yeah, definitely. Yeah. We'll let people go. Don't worry. There's somebody coming in. And then you turning on it at the last minute. That's what I think the fans have an issue with. It's not we're not expecting to be top 3, top 2. We're not expecting that. We know that nobody goes crazy when Neto gets sold or Kilman because they think it's a good deal. It's what you then do with it, and I think that's the issue, and that's where I think it's such a shame as a club when you think back to where we were that we had a head start on all of those teams who are operating a very similar model to us, but they've done it a lot better than we have. And to have let that go and to have given up that ground is really hard to take. And to know that really it's very hard, as Luke said, how many years have we set ourselves back here to try and catch that back up again? So I mean, best of luck to Vitor. I think he's operating he's operating into really difficult ownership, which is going to make it difficult. Which is going to be difficult for any manager to operate under. But I suppose the fact that he is a Mendes appointment, he probably has a little bit more sway. Based on the odd interview we've seen, he says what he thinks, which might be nice. Nice to hear from a change, but. Yeah, I just think it's just that game, going back to yesterday, the atmosphere was just almost. I felt it was more apathy. Just people have lost a bit of they've just lost the passion for it, whether we're winning or losing, because it's just been so bad for such a long time. It feels like such a long time.
It's been nearly 12 months, hasn't it? Now
it's been nearly 12 months since
ever since that Coventry game, we've been absolutely dead. Ever since Cov on the pitch, off the pitch, probably a little bit longer, but. Yeah, I think you're spot on. To be fair, Ali, and you touched on it earlier about the ownership, and have you got any trust in Jeff Shi at this moment in time, regardless of what the topic of conversation is? Have you got an element of trust in anything that comes out of his mouth at this moment in time?
It's a hurdle. It's a hurdle to any progression at Wolves. I've got no doubt. I speak to people, with connections to the club sometimes, and the feeling I get is that they want to progress the club. The people who work for the club want to progress the club and do good things. But all those potential progression ideas and initiatives, they all hit the brick wall that is Jeff Shi, and he won't sign off on any of it. Just won't do it. Whether that's him, whether that's from above, whatever, it just doesn't get past him. And yeah, he's just become an obstacle for anything there at Wolves.
So now we've hounded Gary O'Neill left. Only one job left to do now, lads. And that's
get the cans of Jeff Scar.
yeah. Somebody get the paint stripper in from Darlow Builders Merchants. I've got a job.
Right, I'm going to come to you all with one final question before we end tonight's show. Wolves are currently on 9 points from 16 games. How many points does 17th place need this season to stay up? I'll come to you first, Price. 17th is currently Leicester with 14. How many points minimum are you going to need this season to stay up?
You know what? I'm almost tempted to say just double that and it's spread that. I'll probably say 30 points. I'd say it's going to be a low bar, isn't it, this year?
So what's that? 21. You're looking like what? Another 8 wins that we'll need at the next 22.
It'd be about that.
It's not incomprehensible, is it?
Not unsurmountable, no.
There's 22 games left to play. 1 win is all it takes. I keep on plagiarising Dua Lipa because, she's quite an attractive young lady. Ali,
see what's with that tonight.
Your points prediction for 17th place this season?
Little higher, but not much higher. 30, I think low 30s, 33, 34 probably guarantees you safety. I'd say. I think as Adam says, like you've got. I don't think whoever wins it are going to have anywhere near as many points as they have in previous years. You're not going to have City with 100 points or something like that. So, going to be a more even spread. But yeah, I think 34. I think probably would keep you up.
Luke,
because we're currently in a relegation dogfight, it's probably going to end up being about 7,428. But if I'm being realistic, I'd want to aim for 36.
36 just seemed to be the general consensus in the comments section for those who have joined us on tonight's show. It's
can I just say one thing about Vitor Pereira? Because you asked me to do some research because I've never really heard of him, to be fair. But looking at the league table, we've conceded 40 goals in 16 games. And again, it's comedy. If you didn't laugh, you would cry. But in 642 games, according to Wikipedia, this is, he's only conceded, his teams have conceded 607 goals in 642 games, which that's pretty impressive, that is, to be fair. So if you can bring sort of those averages over to us, it gives us a fighting chance.
And that's all we're asking for.
Yeah.
It's taken too long for Folkestone to get rid of Gary O'Neill. But whether it's fear of the investment imploding on them, they've finally pulled the trigger and they've gave us a fighting chance with 22 games to go.
But as well, sorry, if you look at his defensive record as well, and let's say he brings us down to an average of 1.3 goals per game or whatever it would be. It's less than 1 goal a game, isn't it? But let's just say, because we're crap, 1.3 goals per game. We've conceded 12 goals in our last 4 games. So we've
against some really poor teams, Luke.
Very, very
we
poor
had
teams.
some tough opening fixtures, and November and December were the time it was supposed to turn favourable.
But if you look at it, so we scored 2 against Bournemouth, so there's another 3 points. We scored 1 against West Ham, so you could be looking at there's another point. Scored 1 against Ipswich, could be looking at there's another point. So 5 points would now put us on 10, 11, 12, 13, 14.
Well, that would put us on 14 level with Leicester.
And it just shows how important defence is. And with all due respect to Gary O'Neill, I've mentioned a lot of times, no doubt he's a very good coach, but those defensive stats, they're only going to send you one way, and it's not up.
That's it. Thanks for joining me, Luke, Ali, and Price on tonight's Wolves Fancast review show. Please press the like button upon your exit. Have a good rest of your week. We'll be back likely on Friday to preview Vitor Pereira's first game in charge away to Leicester, if it's done in time. Take care. Up the Wolves.
Thank you.